The U.S. aircraft carrier strike group deployed to the Middle East this week to deal with the escalating confrontation with Iran has now passed through the Suez Canal. Here are the photos of the USS Abraham Lincoln sailing south east of Cairo. Just hours ago, an official with the Iran Revolutionary Guard says that America would not dare to attack Iran because the U.S. knows the consequences would be severe. The Pentagon says it has credible intelligence about a possible Iranian attack on U.S. troops in the region, and that's why they've deployed the Navy strike ships and the nuclear-capable B-52 bombers to the region in response. Yesterday, President Trump asked about that growing risk of military confrontation with Iran. Here's what he had to say.
I guess you could say that always, right? Isn't it? I mean, always. I don't want to say no, but hopefully that won't happen. We have one of the most powerful ships in the world that's loaded up, and we don't want to have to do anything. What I'd like to see with Iran, I'd like to see them call me. What they should be doing is, their economy is a mess ever since I took away the Iran deal. They have inflation that's the highest number I've ever heard. They're having riots every weekend and during the week even. And what they should be doing is calling me up, sitting down, we can make a deal, a fair deal. We just don't want them to have nuclear weapons, not too much to ask.
With me in studio, still Mayor Javadan Farr. Also with me live in Washington, D.C. is I-24 News Washington correspondent Shayna Estulin. Shayna, I want to ask about this deployment of the aircraft carrier group to the region. They've just passed the Suez Canal. Do we know what intelligence exactly prompted Trump to make this deployment? Do we have any idea about the nature of this reported threat?
Well, the White House has been pretty vague on this. Just an Iranian threat. There's some reporting on this that it was a plot against U.S. forces in Iraq. There are about 5,000 U.S. troops right now in Iraq, and there are also Iranian militias in Iraq. And the two groups are working pretty close together. So there is concern about the safety and security of those U.S. forces. It's not only this USS Abraham Lincoln that's heading towards the Middle East. Now there are reports that the Pentagon has sent B-52 bombers to Qatar, also because of this Iranian threat. So clearly we're seeing ratcheting up from the U.S. administration, and we're also seeing ratcheting up from the Iranians. Iran recently designated U.S. forces as a terrorist group, which basically paints a target on their back. That's what critics say. But supporters of that move, of the United States designating the IRGC as a terrorist group, say, well, the U.S. is just telling the truth. The IRGC is a terrorist group, and it's time to call them out for it.
All right, Shayna, Mayor, I want to ask about the big events of the week, particularly that Iran walked away from what was left of the nuclear accord. What does that mean in terms of perhaps restarting the nuclear program? Could they start re-enriching uranium, putting all of those centrifuges back to work soon? Or is this something that's just an option and there's no kind of plan now to really re-up the nuclear program?
I know some articles in the press portrayed as Iran has walked away from the rest of the nuclear deal, but Iran has actually, Iran has done is moot. They walked away from two voluntary articles of the JCPOA. One of them was for Iran to sell any excess uranium, enriched uranium, and the other one was to sell excess heavy water. Well, these articles were already dead because of the Trump sanctions. Iran couldn't sell them anyway. No one would buy it, and if they would buy it, they wouldn't be able to transfer the money. That's it. Iran, it's still the inspections. Iran is still abiding by the quantities of enriched uranium. It's still mothballing with the heavy water. This is Iran issuing basically they're trying to readdress the balance here. They believe that their hand has been too much weakened by the Trump administration. They believe, and I think wrongly, that the Europeans have not stood up to the Americans. So they're trying to redress the balance of power in the current stance by getting the Europeans to step up against the Americans. And also it's for domestic purposes. People in Iran are saying, so some of the hotline is, what are we staying in the deal for? We get nothing for it. So to readdress these things, they've come up. What they've done is actually doesn't threaten anything. What worries us, should worry everybody, is what's going to happen in 60 days. They've given a 60-day ultimatum to the Europeans. The Europeans have already rejected it. What is Iran going to do next?